Hello there everybody, welcome to another one of my videos. So today is going to be a bit of a special video. Right now, as you can tell from the title of this video, I will be making a review of sorts of what it means to own the same daily driver computer for over 10 years. And this is my daily driver computer. Let me quickly show you the task manager here. This is the computer that in December of 2014, I was very excited to be able to buy and build by myself for the first time. This was my first computer as an adult that I built and that I bought. I've built many computers because I've been working in the industry, let's say. So I had the ability to do so. But yeah, back then I was thinking that, and this was also a big buzzword, and I guess it's still a big buzzword today as well, upgradability. What can you do with your computer in, let's say, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, if nobody would have conceived in 2014 or the end of 2014, beginning of 2015, that you would be buying yourself a computer that would last you 10 years, because back then the upgrade paths were, let's say, more reliable. You were getting a doubling of performance every 2 years, like clockwork, right? That kept happening. And so my idea back then was, okay, I will invest a bit more. I'm not going to buy the top of the line computer that I can, but I will buy a decent computer. And what I got myself was the haswell-e on LGA 2011 V3 Intel Core i7 5930K, based at 3.5 gigahertz. Now, this at the time, this was the second best desktop CPU that you could buy. It had just came out in September of that year, and I was buying it in December, right? So I was kind of like a the first one to, not the first one, but among the first people to test this platform out. It was also the first DDR4 implementation for Intel CPUs, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken, but I don't think that I am mistaken. And yeah, it was a beast of a CPU. It had 6 cores and 12 threads, and the L1 cache, L2 cache, L3 cache was quite big as well, and the 3.5 base gigahertz were quite nice as well. There were caveats though, right? The memory support was DDR4 quad channel, which was amazing for the time. And as you guys can see, I've got 64 gigs now, but when I first started with this computer, it only had 16 gigabytes, and it's running now at 3200 megahertz, um, thanks to what's it called, easy easy something in the BIOS. So I'm not doing my own overclocking. I'm not that kind of guy. And at that time, I bought two SSDs. So I got myself two Crucial CT256M M500 SSDs, and I was running these two bad boys. These are SATA SSDs, by the way. You kids now, you think that they are M2. No, these are SATA SSDs. So I was running these two SSDs in RAID 0, which meant that they were a bit faster, and I'm actually running them in RAID 0 right now. So as you guys can see, Crucial RAID 0. So I've got 500 gigabytes without the paging, of course, of space that I'm using. So I didn't have the M2 that I now have for the operating system, and I had a couple of old HDDs, hard drives that I would use. And the graphics card right now is not the initial one. Obviously, this is the second upgrade of the graphics card. At first, I had an NVIDIA GTX 970. Yeah, the 3.5 gigabytes memory, VRAM memory. NVIDIA were screwing us on the video memory even back then, right? So I had the 970. It was not an amazing graphics card, but bear in mind, in 2014/2015, 1080p was the mainstream resolution. And actually, 1440p monitors were already starting to come out, but they were like really fancy, really expensive. So not many people were trying to get those. And then right after, and let's take it chronologically. So I had only 16 gigs of RAM back then, and I don't think that I was running them at 3200 because XMP, yeah, I wasn't using XMP profiles. I was kind of a noob, so I was just running them at, I think, I overclocked them by hand to 2.4 gigahertz, and then that overclocked my CPU as well, this CPU, to 3.7 gigahertz. Because if you don't do it via XMP, you have to raise the base speed of the CPU. But it was stable. I didn't have any issues. It was running quite nicely. I mostly had Windows 7, no issues there. So it was I used this computer very, very well up until then. And let's go ahead and get into it. So what was upgradability? What happened with this computer over time? Because the CPU is the same, the memory has expanded. I've expanded this memory 3 years ago, I think, or 2 years ago, I think. Not that I needed 64 gigabytes, but first of all, I wanted to see if I could get them to run in quad channel, which I did. And this is the max that this CPU can handle, 64 gigabytes. And the reason why I got them is because I would do like OBS recordings, I would do processing, I would have tabs open. So I would use actually a lot of memory. And maybe sometimes I would also have a virtual machine running for the old games that you guys have seen on my channel. So I would use the virtual machine open with like 8 gigabytes, 12, 16 gigabytes assigned to it, and I would still have enough memory for my own, right? So I upgraded the memory like 2 or 3 years ago. I upgraded the first and biggest and most important upgrade was the M.2 SSD, which I was very thankful that the motherboard had the M.2. I don't know what motherboard I've got. I've got an Asus. Yeah, I think I've got an Asus. I do know what motherboard I have, but I can't tell you. No, is it ASRock? Really? No, that's not ASRock. No, the the Intel Arc GPU is ASRock. So I was looking at a box there. But anyway, the first and most important and biggest upgrade that I could have done to the system was adding the M.2 SSD, because even the two crucial SSDs in the RAID 0 were nice, but they were not amazing. So the M.2 was amazing. It's not a very fast M.2. I don't even remember which one it is. Oh, it's the 960 EVO, 250 gigabytes. It's more than enough, and it's quite old now. So who knows how much this will still last me, because these SSDs, they just burn out at one point. And by the way, one of these HDDs, I think this one. No, not this is a new one, obviously 1.8 terabytes. And this is a new USB, but it's also this one, this Western Digital. If I'm not mistaken, this is like 20 years old, this HDD. It's only 150 gigs or 160, I think, without the paging. But if you don't include the paging, if you include the paging. But it's lasted 2 decades, right? This is older than a lot of people have been alive on the planet. But anyway, so upgrading the SSD, that was the biggest upgrade that I could have done. And then afterwards, the big upgrade that came was this bad boy. Let me see if I can show you guys. So this is a Sapphire. Yeah, there you go. This is an AMD RX 580 Sapphire Nitro Sapphire. It wasn't an incredible upgrade over the NVIDIA GeForce 970 GTX 970. It was like 15% faster. I think it got to like 25% faster over time with the what are they called, upgrades, the driver patches and upgrades. So it was very, very decent for 1080p. And even now, a lot of people recommend these. If you can buy a decent one used for 1080p, you're still going to be playing a lot of great, good games with it. Not the latest, and not with details set to above medium, but you'll still be playing them. So yeah, that was a nice upgrade. I've had this AMD RX 580 for the past, I think it was in 2017 that I got it. So I've had it for like 7 years. 7 years because in December of last year, 2024, I got myself the ARC B580. I had a huge amount of issues with it because I was too dumb to read the fine print, which said Intel Arc GPUs require rebar to work properly, otherwise they are doomed. And sadly, this generation of motherboards for the haswell-e processors, they did not have rebar supported officially, but there are amazing people on the internet, and some of these amazing people are called XQD0, and they've got rebar enabling. You can go to this website. I don't know if I'll link it in the comments below, but you guys can pause the video and you can go to the GitHub repository, and you can follow this um, you know step-by-step instruction on how to enable rebar on older motherboards, which theoretically all PCIe 3.0 and up motherboards should be able to handle rebar, right? You just need to add an unofficial patch to your BIOS, which I did, and it took me, I'm not kidding, it took me like a whole month to get right. So that was incredibly annoying and a big problem. And then what do you think happened after I finally got rebar enabled? And by the way, I can show you guys that I do have it enabled. There you go, resizable bar enabled. And if I open the Intel, there you go, resizable bar enabled, 12 gigabytes. And I think if I click here, it's going to say that it's actually 12 gigabytes. It's going to say 20 or 16 gigabytes rebar, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but it doesn't matter. The main point is that I got the Intel Arc B580 to work with rebar on this old ass computer, 10 years old, right? And by the way, on that, I will get to some other juicy details later. So this was the second upgrade to the GPU, and honestly, I'm going to get to the point soon, but honestly, this was completely useless because even with rebar enabled, this old CPU that launched in September of 2014 does not handle new games well, right? So that was an issue. So let's get into the big crux of things, like what happened. And in terms of upgradability and what other things I've changed, I got myself a new monitor. It was kind of like a gift. And just the peripherals, right? Mice, keyboards, this microphone, this camera, just these things. So I'm not going to add those to the price at the end because I will be making a listing of all the costs that I've had with this computer at the end. So yeah, so those were kind of like all of the upgrades that I did. But getting back to the CPU, so X99 from Intel, they launched, we're not going to get into all of these details. You guys can find the Wikipedia page if you're interested for it. There was LGA 2011, which had Sandy Bridge, Ivy Bridge, and these two, they were not amazing. They were even older, as you guys can see. And then we got LG 2011 V3, which I think went from DDR3 to DDR4, if I'm not mistaken. Am I mistaken? No. So Sandy Bridge E was PCIe 2.0. This was Ivy Bridge was PCIe 3.0. So that was the big upgrade, I guess. And I think these were on DDR3 still, these two. And then haswell-e finally comes out on DDR4, the first platform that had it. And there were 3 CPUs that you could buy. You could get the 5820K, 6-core, 12 threads. Same cache as mine at 396. The only thing with this one was that it was underclocked, right? It was probably it's probably the same die, but it's just like less impressive. Oh, and the PCI lanes are less, 28 instead of 40, right? Or you could get the 5930K that I have. You guys can see here the cache levels for $550. So yeah, I paid 500 and something euros for this back then, right? That was quite expensive. And the motherboard was almost 300 euros at the time, which was incredibly expensive for a computer if you think about it, right? So yeah. And then the best one was the 5960X Extreme Edition. This one had 8 cores and 16 threads compared to the 612, and a bit more cache, considerably more cache, but it was almost double the price, right? And so at the time I said, okay, it's not worth me paying like 500 euros more for just 2 cores and 4 threads extra and a bit of extra cache. And it's fine, I will upgrade later. And here's where Intel completely screwed me over, because later in 2016, in May of 2016, so almost 2 years after the initial haswell-e, we get broadwell-e. And broadwell-e, I think, honestly, was the first hiccup in Intel's journey to destruction that we see today that happened to them. I honestly believe that broadwell-e was a complete failure. I don't even know, like, let's search the web. I'm doing this live. Broadwell-e reception. Like, I'm really curious to see what was the reception for broadwell-e from Intel. July 2016, mixed reception, yeah. While it offered improved performance compared, the pricing was prohibitive. Exactly, right? Yes, they were for enthusiasts, right? So you had to pay a lot of money. Exactly, yeah. So there was not much to be joyful about, because let me show you guys. The 60, it had 4, this time it had 4 CPUs. It had 6 core 12 threads, just like before, 6800 and 6850Ks, the exact same cache, and the cheaper one also had 28 PCIe free lanes. And this was 2 years later almost, right? This was, honestly, I think this was really bad for $434. So even more expensive than the old one. And you basically had the same clock speeds, the same cache, the same PCI lanes, just more expensive. So you had to ask yourself, what the hell are they doing? What is this, right? 3.4 base, 3.6 boost, 3.3 base, 3.6 boost. That was completely, I think broadwell-e was dead on arrival, and it was the first big hiccup that Intel had on their path to their current issues. Then we had the 6850. This one had higher clocks and 40 PCIe lanes, right? So this was kind of like the equivalent of my CPU, but in Broadwell. And if we go and we compare these, because I already started comparing some CPUs here, let's add 6850X. Did I misspell that? K, sorry, yeah, I did misspell that. Oh, I'll show you those other ones as well. Yeah, 3.6. Ah, okay. So you already lost what you were doing, but it's fine. Yeah. So let's compare these two. The single thread score is like, let's say 10, 14% less. And then the multi-core score is like 10% less, which is for the same price. Actually, not even the same price. It was even more expensive. Yeah, it was more expensive, just like almost 2 years later. I think this was a very, very bad generation, an incredibly bad generation. Anyway, and let's compare it now with, let's forget about these. Let's go up. We had the 6900K for 816. This was, much better boost clocks, and then the same PCI, the same cache as the top of the line had back then, for far more, right? It was $90 more. 80, no, 90. It was 90, basically $90 more. For $90 more, you had the exact same CPU, just with newer architecture on less nanometers, and a slightly higher boost. Yeah, okay, let's say it was higher boost, but it was still not that amazing. And then you had the top of the line, which is the 10 core 20 thread. I'll give it that. Slightly lower clocks and a lot more, let's say a lot more cache, same 40 lanes, but it was $1,700 23. Let's compare it now. Let's compare these two. Okay, let's figure this out a bit. So this is my CPU, and this is the top of the line that I could upgrade in theory to. 12% less in single thread. That is laughable. 12% less in single thread is laughable. Just because a lot of applications and games still rely heavily on 1-2 cores, right? So you still need single core performance to be quite high. And then 41% less in multi-thread. Okay, I can, that's understandable. This one has 12 threads, the other one has 20 threads. That's almost double. But the performance, you would expect even, like above 50% extra, which it is not, right? And so I could, in theory, because I was speaking about earlier about upgradability, I could in theory go to this one, to the i7-6950X, but nobody's selling these. Nobody. Like over here in Romania, this is literally the only 6950X that I found. This guy sells it for, I'll translate this to you. This is like 1,600 euros, 1,600 euros. And it's also selling the motherboard. Okay, I'll give him that. He's selling the motherboard and some AIOs, right? Some, two RAM sticks, which you ideally want quad channel because these CPUs handle quad channel memory. So, that's not good. But yeah, it's incredibly expensive. It's 1,600 euros is incredibly expensive. And this is the only one that you can find used in Romania. And then if you go to, let's say, Amazon here, yeah, okay, I could go to Amazon in Germany, by the way, because I don't, there's no Amazon Romania, but I could go to Amazon Germany and find one. I don't know if it's new. It might be new, but who cares at this point? For 350 euros. For 350 euros, I could get myself the best upgrade that I can for this 10-year-old platform. But it's not worth it. Because if we go back here and we say, let's compare both of those to the, let's say, to the Ryzen 7 5800 X3D. What do you guys think happens? Can you guess? Oh, you can already see. Look at this. Look at this. The single thread performance completely annihilates both of these. And then the multi-core performance, which, by the way, this is 8-core 16 threads, also completely destroys the best upgrade path that I could have. And do you guys know how much this one is? It's 160 euros. And the motherboard, I could probably get a motherboard for like another 100 euros for this. So I have the RAM, I've got everything, I've got the PSU, I've got everything in here. I could just switch out my motherboard and CPU for this. I would have double the performance from the CPU, and my ARC B580 wouldn't be gutted, because the 5800 X3D is still a decent CPU for that, for modern GPUs, right? I would still be able to game at higher resolutions, higher frames, all of that jazz. So honestly, this is where I'm at. But a lot of you will now say, hey, what do you expect? This is a 10-year-old platform that you're on. What more would you expect of it? So okay, so I guess I need to be fair, and I do need to accept the fact that this has been my daily driver for so much time, and I've actually done a lot of work with it. By the way, I'm a programmer. I actually work with this computer, and I've worked so much with it, and it has brought me a lot of joy, both in terms of work and play, playing games, recording my channel that some of you that are watching know. So yeah, getting back to this, it's not like I should be very, very disappointed, but the fact that LGA 2011 V3 only had 2 generations on it, and the second generation that came was a complete disaster. I mean, I wouldn't say complete, but if you're going to wait like 2 years, and if you'll have to spend like over $1,000 for a CPU upgrade, it needs to be stellar, right? It needs to be unheard of. But broadwell-e was a complete lemon, in my opinion. And that's where the upgrade path ended for me. Um, what else? I guess this is pretty much it. Oh, I guess I can go into the details of how much I've paid for all of this. So back then, let's take the calculator out. I think the computer without the monitor, I'm not going to be putting monitors in the calculation, right? Because those, they change. But I think back then, I think I've spent 100 and 500 euros for the computer alone, which means case, PSU. By the way, I've got a DVD ROM in there, which works, and I'm going to keep that bad boy. But yeah, 100, 1,500 euros for this. And then let's add the upgrades. I think the SSD was 150. Then we had the RAM, which was another 200 or less actually. Then we had the RX 580, which was like 300 euros. And what else? And now we have the B580, but I'm not really the Intel Arc B580, but I'm not really, I mean, I can, you know what, I'll add it in here as well. It's another 350 euros. So yeah, we come up to 2,500 euros square with the upgrades. I didn't profit off of the pieces that I had to switch out. So my old RAM, my 16 gigabyte kit is still here. My RX is still here, and the initial NVIDIA GTX 970 I actually gifted to a friend of mine. So I didn't profit off of anything that I took out of this computer. So, and I guess, oh yeah, I do have to say this, I had to replace the motherboard. So more than a year ago, in at the beginning of 2024, my motherboard, the initial one, died. I still have it. Nobody was able to repair it, so I still keep it for, you know, keepers, for the memories. But yeah, and that was, I guess, another 100. Was it another 100? I think it was another 100 euros. We'll say 100 euros. And that's pretty much it. I didn't change. Oh yeah, and some fans. I did get me some fans, and those were like some case fans. But the case fans I can reuse later as well. I can, you know, take out of this. So yeah, I guess we also add 200 euros for the case fans. I got myself some really nice case fans, also 2 years ago. But yeah, this is what this computer has cost me in the last 10 years. So that's an average of 280 euros per year to own and drive this computer on a daily basis with minimal problems. I mean, the biggest problem was getting the B580 to work with rebar. But otherwise, I've had like no stability issues. I've had no you know, like huge performance issues, because I do realize that, you know, this is an old computer and it's not going to be able to perform well. But yeah, I don't know. I feel, you know, in a sense, to you know, to come to a conclusion, because this video has been going on for far too long. Oh my God, that I can rant. Anyway, to get to a conclusion here, it was cheap to keep for this long, right? The longer you keep it, the cheaper it gets. I felt a bit screwed by Intel, to be completely frank here, because upgradability seemingly is not here. There is no upgradability, right? The best CPU that I could now upgrade to, which would be worth maybe the performance, is outrageously expensive, right? And it was outrageously expensive back in 2016 when it launched as well, right? I wouldn't have been able in 2016, 2017 to get myself this CPU, or get you know, like a lower tier of the CPU for another 500, 600 euros for 10% increase in performance. That would have not been worth the hassle and the money. So I kind of feel screwed by Intel there. I know that AMD have been doing a far better job, especially with their AM4 platform, of making it upgradable. So, you know, maybe that was my mistake of not going with AMD back then. Who knows? Well, I guess I'll no time for regrets. But yeah, is it worth, because this is the basic idea of why I made this whole video and explanation. Is it worth building a computer with the idea of upgradability in mind. Is it worth wasting so much mental capacity and effort thinking about the future? I would say no, unless you know for certain that within the next 5 years you have disposable income that you can throw on your computer and the time and patience to, sell the used parts that you're going to be switching out. So honestly, for my next PC, I'm not even thinking, because I was like, okay, I'll wait for DDR6, or maybe I'll do this, or maybe I'll do that. But honestly, for this next PC that I'll be buying, because I need to retire this one, 1440p, it just doesn't cut it for 1440p. The B580 would be decent, I would say, for 1440p, especially because I don't play very 3D intense, like very modern games, AAA games, 4A games. I don't play those. It's not my style. So I would be more than happy with this GPU, but honestly, just thinking about it, it's not worth the hassle for me to keep upgradability in mind, to think about what about the future. Since the biggest upgrade, and I will reiterate, that I felt on this system was the M.2 SSD. That was the biggest one. The rest was like nice improvements, but they were really not worth the cost. Like if you think about it, the B580 that I just bought, not worth the cost because I can't really use it. It is marginally better than my RX 580. Now that I have rebar enabled, right? The RX runs better as well. But yeah, anyway, this should be it. That's the conclusion. Is upgradability worth it? Maybe not, but maybe that's just me. Thank you to everybody for watching and listening. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video, this rant. And as always, I hope to see you guys next time. Goodbye.